So teaching and learning in higher education is offered by Colt, and it was a program that allowed me to meet many other faculty and kind of have a bit of I would say, a forum for discussion, for learning to share strategies and different input. With the capstone project, you're basically looking at the action research project, which allowed us to do a little bit of a study in our classrooms. And it was a great opportunity for me. Myself, I've been at the School of Business since May 2012. And in addition to teaching, I also am a essential skills trainer in not-for-profit career colleges and employment agencies. In that kind of environment, you don't always have the most eager learners or trainees. There's a lot of pushback for material, especially with a topic like customer service or even sales. And one of the questions that was really on my mind was, how do I engage my learners more so? With human resources courses that I teach at the School of Business, as well as the School of Engineering and Technology, I would also meet students who weren't necessarily totally motivated about learning topics like terminations, recruitment and selection, and pensions, not necessarily your really exciting material, right? So the question was, how can I try to engage learners in order to motivate learning, growth, and knowledge? What's the catalyst? With the capstone project, I could actually try to study or have an objective where I could try something. And what was a great advantage was to have Zabita around, who could conduct an ethical study to make sure that my strategies weren't necessarily disadvantaging anyone, and were actually really utilizing the opportunity to motivate people to learn or to question certain topics, maybe a chapter in a textbook, or maybe the way that I taught. But the idea was, how can we create activities that actually engage people? And one of the motivations that I saw was, if we use an activity in class, can we incorporate different elements to actually make people want to learn more? So I was lucky enough to volunteer for OCMC, a marketing competition a few years ago as a volunteer coordinator, and I saw all these students all of a sudden extremely motivated to engage subject material that they saw in textbooks, which was different than sitting in a classroom. So I said, why don't we group people into teams, and why don't we give them a case study and problem, and let's see how they'll actually react to the material. Will they do more with it than just study or cram? And we got to observe, we got to collect data, so surveys, we got to see how many people, and I think just the interaction of giving students an additional role and saying, you're gonna be a participant, not just a student. It's all of a sudden, it changes their perspective, their lens in the classroom. Now I actually have to be active. And I think that just in that in and of itself was just so valuable for the students. And I think that's what we're hoping for when we talk about the intended results. The idea that we're creating a signature learning experience just by trying something new. It's unique, it's new, because you're trying it, it's your strategy. And the feedback, I got feedback I didn't even expect. So even after the exam, I have people emailing saying, hey, do you remember that competition we did in class on that case? That's what I was thinking about when I was answering exam questions. Short answer questions or an essay, that's what I was thinking about. I was thinking about the competition where I got to enter. Now, if we talk about Centennial College and the idea of preparing students for career success, incorporating experiential learning, then, isn't that a perfect example of experiencing something in class, going through motions, and similar to what we were talking about in human resources, they're grouped into HR teams and solving an actual solution that a simulated organization would face. Okay, I think we were talking about mergers and acquisitions in an HR strategy course. If you go into the formula, what does it actually take? Because going back to your spectrum of, novice to expert in scholarship, I'm a novice. Okay, so I was really focused on what the formula is. How much time is it going to take to do this, and how much prep time and how much work is really going in. But if you look at a 2-hour space within a 3-hour lecture or lecture time that's allocated, with 30 minutes of prep time, an hour of lecture to actually present information and let them kind of understand and listen, another advantage that I found was that people who didn't necessarily learn through listening or reading or writing notes all of a sudden got to engage the material and take time to discuss in groups what we were talking about. So another bit of knowledge retention and transfer with regard to subject material. It was great. More than the formula, though, again, you're focusing on Centennial College, the idea of diversity in the classroom. You know how diverse our classrooms are. You see it all the time. I'm teaching HR classes to people from second careers, high school students who've graduated, as well as groups that I'd never think of. So at the School of Engineering, I was teaching HR courses to architects from all over the world, and that was mind-blowing. So I want to do my best to engage them and also bring their awareness of our topics and our subject material, up front and center. The problems that we were facing was, or at least my worries initially, was how do I ensure that students participate in the actual study? And that actually required a lot of careful invigilation, so rotating around the room. For example, if, depending on the study that you do, it would be different, but using technology is a great way if a lot of what you're working on is done from home with students. But I actually had a classroom to work with, a packed classroom, so about 30 participants, and we really got to see and motivate people. Not to mention people with a competitive nature, the A-type personalities, were already very into it and encouraging each other right from the get-go. Okay. I think I went about 5 minutes there.
Yeah,
all right.
6:20.
Okay, great. If anyone has any questions about, maybe the work that I did or the influence that the Action Research Project and THLE has for me, I mean, it's now started, probably a Pandora's box has been opened because I'm going to continue this. I mean, now I'm going to be doing further studies in graduate just so I can do more research and kind of figure out ways to engage. I really think engagement is a catalyst for learning. So if anyone has any questions about that, I'd be glad to share more information there. Okay. Yeah.
Thanks for the great presentation. Where did you get the case studies from?
Oh, I created them. But we use basic, so if we're looking at mergers and acquisitions, for example, you would want to go with something focusing in business world right now, or the current, relationship between Loblaws and Shoppers, for example. And then you'd write it up, and that's something that students can really relate to because it's something they're seeing. Okay, now PC products are on the shelves in Shoppers Drug Mart. Well, what does that mean for the corporate culture of Shoppers? How do you integrate those people into the Loblaws culture? And then, you get all these ideas based on orientation programs we'd studied in another chapter. Yeah. Okay. Great, thanks. Can I introduce Frank Travato from the School of Community and Health Sciences? Thank you.